Thank you, Lisa. Now that was incredible. I think my favorite tweet as I was tracking backstage was from Marcella Hayes, which summed up some of my thoughts as well. I had no idea Ericsson was doing all of this cool stuff. Amazeballs. Amazeballs indeed, Marcella. This is that was incredible to watch some of that. We know a lot of you are taking pictures of some of the slides. For all of you that registered for the live stream, all of the content is going to be made available to you next week. And we're going to be sending out an email with instructions on how to get the content for everybody who's here in the building as well. So if the slide went forward right before you got that picture, and it was like a blurry mashup, and you're upset because that was the golden slide, you'll get access to it, so don't sweat it. So I'm excited to introduce our next guest, who will be bringing out a fireside chat and a Q&A. So again, last reminder on the Q&A, if you have questions, leave a status update with a question in the app, and we'll cover those. And if you're on the live stream GD Summit, send your questions, and we'll get to those. So Rusty Rueff is the former EVP of HR at both Electronic Arts and PepsiCo. He's a recognized career expert, workplace expert. He's also a consultant and a writer, as well as a startup company advisor and investor. Rusty most recently completed the successful 16-month leadership role as coordinating national co-chair for technology for the Obama re-election campaign. He currently serves on the corporate boards of Glassdoor, HireVue, Rethink Books, and Run Coach. In addition, he's the chairman of the Grammy Foundation and president of the board of trustees of the American Conservatory Theater. So if you feel that you're ambitious in life, listen to that bio and you'll get some good life goals. But Rusty's amazing, and he's going to come out and take you through the next session. And please join me in welcoming. All right.
Thank you. So they asked me to actually tell you why I was the first non-founding board director for Glassdoor. And so I thought I'd just tell you. So I'd come out of this job at EA, where I'd been the head of HR there, and I became a CEO of a digital music commerce company called Snowcap. And I'd written this book called Talent Force, been doing all these different things. And I got this crazy call late at night from this guy who said, I just got done finishing reading your book. Can you meet with me tomorrow, because I've got this company I'm going to start? Like, okay. So I met with this guy the next day, and he had put little ear things in all my book and little things. He goes, will you sign this thing? And I said, yeah. And he goes, will you sign this piece of paper? So what is it? He goes, it's a non-disclosure agreement. I said, okay. I sign it, and he goes on to tell me about this company called Glassdoor he's going to create. And I was intrigued from right at the beginning, because not only was it about transparency, and I thought the importance and the altruism of having people make better career decisions, but for the first time I saw something that might allow all of us in our craft, in the craft of human capital, to be able to actually value the asset of human capital. Because it's the only asset inside of companies that actually appreciates, correct? Everything else depreciates. But we had never had a way to kind of look at it and say, well, how can I put a value on that? And I could see the beginning of it. That was like 9 years ago that we got together. So we've been at it for a long time, and now we're at a place where, you're here because you and your management team can now see the value of human capital in a new way. And people are beginning to look at human capital as an asset and putting value on it from the outside world, looking at our companies and saying, okay, so if I could look at inside the company and see how you do with your people, I can help value your company. Lots of analysts are looking at it. It's an exciting time, and I'm excited to be here today. And speaking of analysts, our next guest, who I'm going to spend some time with, is the head of HR for the Forrester Group, which most of you know or don't know, you will know. And her name is Lucia Quinn. She's awesome. You've read her bio, but what I think is most interesting is that she's only been doing the craft of human resources for about 10 years. Before that, for 25 years plus, she was in other lines of the business, line management roles, functional leadership roles, and she made this shift over, and now 3 different CEOs have looked at her and said, you're the person to lead my company in the human capital space. And that says a lot to me, because someone who makes that transition and then can carry all those experiences over gives us a perspective that not everybody has. So with that, I'm going to bring up Lucia, and we're going to sit down and we're going to have a talk. So welcome, Lucia. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're both on East Coast time, so we're just about...
So we're about to have drinks.
Yeah, we're about close to happy hour. This is happy hour, right? It is happy hour. So, okay, so you're going through this transformation at Forrester, where you're really making a bold move, in my mind, which is to move away from this idea of sort of human capital, human resources, to the employee experience. Mm-hmm. So take us through, how'd you come to that? And then more importantly, how did you influence your management team to want to come along on that journey with you?
I'm still influencing them to come along on the journey, so it never ends, for sure. So you mentioned that I worked for 3 CEOs who didn't want an HR professional on the job. One of the reasons I've been able to be successful is because I had great HR partners in my line and staff jobs prior to coming into HR. But I said no to the first HR job because I really felt that HR at that time, 10 years ago, was still very much in, someone said it earlier, legal, compliance, employee advocacy. And I didn't want to give up being an advocate for the business and for business results. Right. I was stupid because what I've seen in the 10 years and the 3 CEOs is that it is the perfect job for bringing everything that I learned and connecting employees more directly and their leaders more directly to the business and the purpose of the business.
That's cool. So tell me about the conversation when you first introduced this idea of employee experience to your CEO.
Very interesting. We actually started talking about culture first. And like many CEOs, and the research shows this, his comment was, I know it's important, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know what to do about it. That soft stuff, I don't know what to do. And the first thing I said to him is the soft stuff is the hard stuff. That's why people don't do it. Right. And so we really need to pay attention to our own executive team and how we are reflecting what the company is, what we believe in, how willing we are to listen to our employees in terms of what needs to change, what can be even more effective. I won't say he was a believer at the beginning. We're 3 years in. It coincided very nicely with a change in our business strategy that really was triggered by the CEO. So really I can say this was all his idea. In terms of our own clients, the people for whom we do research. The balance of power has changed for them as well. Technology means that their customers have all the power. And when I could draw the analogy for George that our employees were very much in the seat of the customers of our clients, that the power was changing, that we are a people business. The only thing we have is our intellectual property. Right. Paying attention to, listening, being present for the people who deliver our product to the market was the most important thing we could do. So the business strategy really opened the door, and I just went charging in. First to talk about our culture, and then over time, really with my own team first, to talk about our changing roles. And now we are beginning to think about ourselves as experience architects or experience engineers, where our job is to make room for employees to think about the purpose of the company, how it aligns with their values, what they want to contribute, how they want to grow and develop, what they can commit to. And 3 years later, I would say that our CEO gets it. He will love to see the data that we were teased with earlier in terms of demonstrating with hard data why it makes a difference, why there is a causal relationship, and I can't wait to take that home to him.
Yeah, that's cool. I use the term craft versus profession on purpose because I think you're getting at something that that a lot of people don't really grok until later, maybe in their career sometimes, is that a profession means you sort of have to do it this way, right? A doctor, a lawyer, you're held by that. A craft, or an architect, as you're thinking about, or an engineer, can solve problems in lots of different ways. Yeah. But it also means that you hire different people onto your team.
Yes.
So did you have have to rethink or retool that team as you moved into this?
Into the function of HR or into the employee experience?
In the employee experience.
Yeah, we're really working hard on that because HR, like any other function, has its own silos. And they are silos of expertise that is very valuable to their organizations. But with a tendency, as human beings, necessarily to sort of guard their own areas. You said a profession with rules. I hate rules, and please don't tell me how to do anything.
Yep.
I want to figure out how to do it myself and maybe differently. And that's really what I'm trying to invite my team to do, to think about working across the team. Every project has a different group of people assigned to it, to think about working across the company. And I think most importantly, and I'm going to say this to them because I know they're out there in Boston watching, I want them to be role models for the rest of the company in terms of how to collaborate above and beyond their space to engaging employees in the future of the company and into delivering business results.
Yeah, that's cool. So if someone was to stop you and ask you, like I'm going to ask you right now, what would be the template for someone to follow if they're in your role or want to be in your role inside of their own company to make this sort of transition, to say, you know, I don't want to be traditional. I want to be on the cutting edge. I want to rebrand ourselves. I want to think about this employee experience. Is there a template that you can help them follow?
You know, a really easy one is, you know, stop talking and start listening. The people in your organization at every level know more about what will excite them, what will satisfy clients, what's not going well, how to recruit good, remarkable people, as someone said earlier. They have all the answers. It is the role of senior executives, and certainly in my function too, to let them unlock it. And that means listening, which is the higher you rise in the organization, the harder it is to practice.
Yes. So when you make a bold move like this, it also invites the cynics, right? So it invites new people to say, oh, wait a minute, if you're going to reach to that high standard, it means you have to do that much better. How have you dealt with the cynics?
They've been there, I mean, my whole career. There are people who live in cynicism, and good for them. I don't want to unpack their baggage. It's hard. I was thinking earlier about someone's remarks about really the folks in this function are sitting between. They are the potential lever, and it's very hard to be at the front end of change and to do it year in and year out, knowing that you're going to have folks in your organization who, frankly, if you understand their feelings and reactions as fear, you'll get much further in trying to uncover and connect with them. They won't present it as fear. You know very well that they will present it as bombast and, you know, highly technical objections to your point of view. But what's underneath that is their reluctance to think of vulnerability as a strength. And so being able to model that, helping them to see that, in fact, their organization will run better, respond better to adversity as well as to success, when in fact they're able to be open, is really the key. It gets under my skin sometimes. You know, even with my own CEO, sometimes he'll say something that I consider to be incredibly stupid. And in front of my peers.
Good thing we're not live streaming this.
And in front of my peers, not because he means it to be, but because, you know, they're waiting to hear, oh, well, that's soft stuff. We don't have to pay attention to that. We don't have to fund it. We don't have to. And I give him just a ton of credit because I think he was one of those cynics, but he opened the door. And he has given me and now my team tremendous opportunity, not necessarily tremendous resources, but enough to get started. We have such a richness of resources in our organization. We don't need to ask for more. We need to use what we have better and more directly, and to share more of it. And so I couldn't ask for more.
Say that again, because that's an important part. You don't need to ask for more. You need to use.
You need to use and share what you have.
Right.
We have an abundance of riches.
The reason I stopped there for a second is because I think in our craft, a lot of times we can be caught in a place where it's like, if I just had more.
If I just had a seat at the table, my least favorite comment in the world.
Yeah.
Because you earn that.
That's right.
By connecting your work to the work of the business.
Right.
And when those two are seamless, you are a partner on the team.
So take us through sort of tools, process, new things that you've put in place in order to bolster what you're trying to do on the employee experience side.
Thanks. First, I broke down the silos. I can't say I. My team worked hard to break down their own silos, to learn from each other and to be more open about doing work in new ways. We also began to do some culture shaping work, which was to introduce a very deceivingly simple set of tools to talk to each other using, just plain layman's English about what culture means to us and looking at it on a regular basis. We've introduced listening sessions where, as a result of pulse surveys that we do on a fairly frequent basis, we get the 3 hot topics from our employees in any given period of time. And then I sign up to do and get, hopefully as time goes on, more executives to sign up and sit in a room like this and listen. And believe me, I'd have to sit on my hands sometimes to remember that my only role in the room is to understand how the room is feeling. I have lots of opportunities to figure out what to do with that, but if I haven't listened to it, I have no idea what to do. Right. We do a lot of emphasis on coaching. Coaching from boss to subordinate, but also peer-to-peer coaching. We do a lot of workshops around it. We do a lot of videos and case studies around it so that people get a sense that coaching is not the thing you do once a year in the performance review. Coaching is the conversation in the hallway. It's the moment where something went really well or something didn't go well, but it's always about helping each other become even more effective at what we're doing.
That's very cool. Maybe give us a glimpse at the positives that one receives when one is modeling what you're asking, and also examples of maybe what you've had to do for those who aren't modeling.
Oh boy. Modeling, I'll take an example from another company because it's just beginning to happen at Forrester, where a team had unsuccessfully been working on a product they wanted to launch for 10 years. Now this is in a fairly archaic industry, but 10 years is a long time. They were ahead at the beginning and way behind by the end. And they decided, after going through some work with the team that I was leading, that in fact they wanted to start over again and that they wanted to spend 3 days focused on their relationships with each other. And they went from a highly dysfunctional, if those two words go together, highly dysfunctional team to a team that 4 months later introduced a groundbreaking product to the market. Wow. But they had to clear out those pipes of all the history of, this is the way we used to do it, we always did it that way, we made a mistake, we can't repeat the mistake, and they just put all that behind them and moved forward. There's still skeptics. I don't want to spend any money on that. I don't want to focus on that. I want to design a meeting, but we really need to spend more of the meeting focused on the business. Mm-hmm. And I have to, okay, I'm going to leave the room for a minute, and then I'm going to come back and say, this is the business. Right. This is what makes the business hum, and we ignore it at our peril.
Yeah, I like to, when I spend time with CEOs, and I always say, hey, I know what your number one asset is. I read it in your annual report, I know it, it's people. And they go, yeah, it's people. And then when you start to get underneath it, it's like, more often than not, it's sort of like, yeah, but somebody else takes care of people, right? And it's like, no, that's your job too.
Right.
It is the business.
Maybe the biggest part of your job.
It is your job.
Right.
So, okay, so let's talk about Glassdoor a little bit.
Yeah.
So where does Glassdoor fit in this sort of equation for you in driving the employee experience?
It has been, it may be in some ways an unexpected, but just a tremendous lever. You head into it thinking a little bit like it's Yelp. And you're just going to be listening to everybody's complaints. And then if you can turn your ear a little bit.
It is okay. If you're from Yelp, it's okay.
But you know that somebody's going to walk out, they had a bad experience, they're going to take time to write about it. They had a good experience, they move on. And they forget to take the time to tell you about it. We learned pretty quickly, one, we didn't like our scores. And we're a very data-driven organization, and we did not like our scores. But the most important part was to say, okay, this is actually a channel that allows us to do more listening. And if we're not completely trusted, then this is a way to have an objective filter where the employee or the former employee feels like they're going to be posted and they're not going to be monitored by, senior management. And once we leaned into that, we actually began not only to learn things, but we do respond equally to the good and the bad, but maybe even a little more to the people who are disgruntled, they're unhappy, because I want to know more about it. And as I said to one person recently in a post, I really wish I'd known this before you left, because then I could have done something about it that would have affected you. But if you're willing, I'd still really like to talk about it, because I don't want to think that anybody else is having this experience. That's a gift, to have that objective forum that just posts it, lets us think about it. Our CEO, we have a company meeting every quarter, and he starts that meeting out first by reading client comments so that the whole room gets connected to the business in the very first minutes of the meeting, and the next thing he does is read Glassdoor comments.
Wow.
Because he wants the organization to hear, yes, we're paying attention, yes, we're listening, yes, we care, and yes, we're inviting you to help us make this company a better place. We are all accountable for doing that, not just the people sitting on the stage on any given day.
Have you seen inside of your Glassdoor comments anybody starting to talk about the employee experience?
I don't know. I'm looking at Elsa down there in the front row. I've gotten lots of emails about it.
Yeah.
One, go figure, employees love to have their name to be mentioned in the name of the work. It's the employee experience. I can't say that I know for sure. I do know I have I'm very fond of a somewhat jaded analyst in our company who sent me a note the other day that just blew me away. Just saying that I'll try to keep it genderless. That person felt that the company was really changing, that the difference could be felt. And this is not someone who hardly ever comes to corporate or the headquarters. So to hear it from someone that far distant from where we all think, the world is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, really was rewarding. And the first thing the email said is, love the name.
Nice. So on the Glassdoor side, your CEO, you had gotten him to a place where he's open like that. Give a few tips to the person who doesn't quite have the CEO there yet and may look at the negative side of it instead of the positive side. How do you walk someone down that path?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to bet that everybody in the room already knows this, but know your business. Know the numbers, know your customers, know what your investors are looking for. Be able to speak to your CEO in his or her language, not the language of HR, not the language of recruiting. We all get sort of boxed up in our vernacular because it makes us feel important. But in fact, if you can speak to the CEO in his or her language, that's the first difference that really gets their attention. If you can, in every interaction, connect why it's important to be thinking about how an employee is going to react to a message, or why you can't take your investor communications and give it to your employees and say you communicated to them. Why the employee is going to think about themselves first, but not in a selfish way that should have you discounting them, but because how you turn that into thinking about the company and themselves as a unit. Those are really common sense, common language, be a business person first, and then offer the expertise that all of you have in a way that it can be consumed by your audience. It's basic stakeholder analysis. The CEO rarely has people telling him or her the unvarnished truth. You want to be in that position where you are the trusted advisor. So you can't make it a mystery. You can't make it special and sitting over this on the side. You have to make it okay for that person to show a little bit of vulnerability and see the power that can derive.
That's cool. All right, we got like 2 minutes left. So what's your dream for the employee experience going forward at Forrester?
That it's not just the work of the team that I'm leading, that every person in the organization understands that they are a part of the movement, a part of the initiative, and that it is the most important way in which we can connect to our clients. I will say that our clients, many of whom are CEOs of the Fortune 500, tell us that their number one concern is the culture of their organization and how to get their people to work together. It is becoming a part of every one of our research projects, every one of our consulting projects, is don't just give me the smart answer, tell me what to do next. And so employees love working at Forrester. And in fact, we have many people who come back, having gone elsewhere. We refer to them as boomerangs, and when they come back, we actually give them a boomerang.
That's kind of cool.
The market we serve is changing dramatically and will continue to. We have to be agile, we have to be quick, we have to fail fast, and we have to support each other. Because it's not going to be the same next year as it is today. And my small team, it can't wear that on their shoulders. They can share it with others, and that's kind of my dream.
That's awesome. I think I want to work at Forrester. That's beautiful.
We have job openings. But so far, I don't think mine is open, so please don't apply.
Cool. All right, so we're going to take 2 seconds here. We're going to invite up the speakers from this morning. I'm going to do a little moderation. They're going to bring some chairs out, and while everybody's coming up, I'm going to go grab the questions. So I'll be right back. Okay.